Hello and welcome to our viewers on cruxinvestor.com and also to our listeners on Cruxcast, our new podcast series. We're here today with Fortune Mojapelo. He's the CEO of Bushveld Minerals. Hello Fortune, how are you? Good to have you in London.
Yeah, thank you. Good to be here.
What are you over here for?
Well, we just released our annual results.
Mm-hmm.
We are here on to talk to a few of our shareholders and investors.
Yeah. So you're AIM listed, obviously. So and a few institutional shareholders here.
We do, yeah. Been listed on AIM since 2012, it's been an interesting ride since.
Yes, it has. Well, why don't we start off with some of the people new to this story, certainly our viewers and subscribers. Give us a 2-minute overview of the business. Don't have to get into too much detail. We're going to get stuck into some questions.
Yes. Well, what we are, we're a vanadium focused company. Vanadium is the commodity we focused on. And our vision, our ambition is to build it into one of the most significant, lowest cost and vertically integrated vanadium company. A bit of a mouthful, but basically what it means is, we want to combine our large primary vanadium resource base, which is high grade, open cast resource base across 3 deposits, the largest primary vanadium resource base of anybody in the world, combined with processing infrastructure that allows us to process this vanadium into final products. And that processing infrastructure is centered around 2 key primary plants that we have in South Africa. The Vametco plant, which we acquired in 2017, and Vanchem, which we recently announced. So that gives us a platform to produce low-cost vanadium at large scale. And the integrated piece of the business is how we take that vanadium further downstream into the energy storage market, where we essentially, plan on being one of the largest, one of the more significant energy storage companies through vanadium Redox flow batteries.
Okay, we're going to get onto that because that's interesting to me in terms of that process. So the vanadium spot price, if you look at it, it's all over the place. It's kind of it's a crazy ride.
Yes.
Right. So why don't you tell people a little bit about where vanadium sits in the market, what its uses and its applications first of all?
Yeah, it's been a very volatile commodity. And when you look at its price profile, it's quite interesting to see. And it can put some people off, but we think that in any commodity, your number one goal should be looking for that project or that production base that is cheap, low cost. If you're the lowest cost producer, you won't have much to worry about the volatility in the price.
You've got some margin there, and I know you're one of the lowest quartile producers of vanadium, but even so, that in terms of predictability and being able to plan ahead, must be difficult.
Again, it depends, right, how you structure your business. So, for example, if you structure your business with a lot of debt, which is predicated on vanadium coming in at a certain price, then you get a problem, right, if the vanadium price doesn't realize there. But I think if you have a low-cost producer and you've got a good capital structure, you should be okay, right? We all want a stable vanadium price, make no mistake about it. But we think the first thing is make sure you're a low-cost producer. And for us, it's one of our key pillars in the projects that we get involved in. Overall, though, we think that as a commodity, the vanadium market's outlook is actually very good.
Well, this has come on to your reflux battery component, I'm guessing, but
even before that.
Okay. So just quickly describe vanadium uses today and then get on to what they could be.
So about 90% of the world's vanadium today is used in steel making. Right? You add 0.2% of vanadium to stainless steel, you double its strength, right? And so it's used in construction steel. Whenever you're building infrastructure, you need tensile strength in steel.
And the rebar.
So in rebar. So that's been the traditional kind of space for vanadium applications. And I should add that, even if that was all that there was to vanadium consumption, that's been the bedrock for a century plus, and we think will continue to be, given its unique place in that space. In countries like China, where you got regulations that are being put in place to regulate, the types of rebar that is produced, so China is moving away from low quality grade 2 rebar towards grade 3, grade 4 rebars.
And that, China resetting the quality of the rebar did have an impact on the vanadium price.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
And therefore knock-on effect with you guys, I guess. So was that a big impact on you?
It has an impact on vanadium. I think the new standard in China, it's estimated that if and when fully implemented, just to meet that standard, it should raise the demand for vanadium in China domestically by as much as 30%. Now, given that China accounts for about 50% of global vanadium consumption, talking about a 15% uplift in the demand. That impact hasn't really come through yet, because we believe that the enforcement of that standard hasn't been strong yet. But we believe that the government will start to implement the inspections, and that in the second half of this year we'll see the enforcement of that standard increase, and therefore that demand upside will start to come through from there on. And that's, of course, just one part of that demand story. There is the Redox flow batteries you talked about earlier on. And timing couldn't be better in terms of what's going on in the world around our energy, electricity generation, the push for cleaner energy, etc. So the use of vanadium in energy storage, we think, is going to substantially increase the demand profile of vanadium through these batteries called vanadium redox flow batteries.
So let's come on to that in a minute, because technically I want to understand that a bit, but I want to stay with you. What you've been doing since how long have you been with the company now?
I founded the company together with partners.
Okay. So which
stretches back to 2008. We listed in 2012 on AIM, but we started essentially Bushveld Minerals as a early stage exploration projects, which we were developing from as early as 2000.
Fantastic. So if you've gone from junior explorer into production, and if you're number one in the world at anything, it suggests you're quite good. So you've obviously done quite well in terms of establishing yourself. So tell us about that journey.
It's been an interesting journey. I think we started our journey in the junior space at an interesting time, because it was about the time that the global financial crisis was setting in. Yeah. And as you know, when that happened, risk capital becomes scarce because people are less willing to take big risks, and the casualty of that is actually endeavors such as junior mining and exploration. I partnered with three individuals in South Africa, two twins, identical twins, both professors of geology, Maurice and Richard Fillion, and Anthony Fillion was Richard's son. And essentially we started life with a view that, these two gentlemen are doyens of geology in Africa. They know the Bushveld complex inside out. They've advised many people to find new deposits. Let's create a business where we leverage that IP and we build projects. And that's how we started life, and we started looking for exploration projects that we can build up. Yeah. And our journey grew from there.
Are you a geologist?
I'm not a geologist. No.
I
studied actuarial science, and I worked in strategy consulting for a little bit.
Fantastic. Okay. Yeah. So you started then, obviously that's all about, equity, raising equity to be able to, do what you needed to do.
Look, when we started, my interest was to do principal investments. I was looking for opportunities in Africa where there is scope for scale growth. And I'll be honest with you, a year before that, I didn't know about anything called junior mining at all. Until I met with the Fillions, and I think from there on we gelled, and we started finding projects, we started developing the projects, and we're fortunate to get backers who backed us early.
Yeah.
One project led to another project, and until we got Bushveld Minerals listed in 2012 on AIM.
It's kind of interesting when we talk to a lot of CEOs. It's not all plain sailing. It's not smooth.
No, it never is.
Smooth line. So what are the important things for you? Given you weren't into junior mining or when you first started. What are the things which stand out for you as moments where there's a significant change in your understanding or indeed the business?
You're always learning as you go, and I think for me a starting point was that when you are working with a technical team in a technical field that is exceptional, that is distinguished, who know what they're talking about, it's a good starting point. They will tell you that everything starts with geology in mining, and I tend to agree with them. And then the second thing is that your early deals, and there's a general thing, your early deals are always going to be the most expensive, but what's more important is proving yourself and making money for your investors that give you capital to do what you want to do. And with time, as you develop and as you prove successful, you then can get a bit more leverage in your conversations with investors. So our very first project was an expensive project from a financing point of view, I can tell you now. But it gave us a platform to develop more, and that's how we've developed ourselves. Right. Even after we listed, we faced what every junior company faced. It was hard to raise money. We had projects that we were comfortable with, that they're solid projects. And we had a guiding philosophy which we believed in, which I think has stood us very well. We were fortunate that we had good projects. And from about 2013, after seeing our share price come down, our market come down since listing, we did what I think was pivotal, which is we decided to focus on vanadium as a commodity, and it is really there that I think our inflection point started. We still were small, but we got our scoping study on our flagship project that we had done quickly. We did our pre-feasibility study, and we developed a conviction about this market that we've carried since then, and we believe it's a market that is really for us to participate in.
So, but you've got, how much of the vanadium market? You're world number one, right?
We're the largest in terms of the resource space.
In terms of the resource space?
In terms of the resource space.
In terms of production?
In terms of production, we're not the largest producer now. There is at least two primary producers that produce more than we do. Largo Resources and Glencore's Rovan operation in South Africa. But after the acquisition that we did, that we just announced of Vanchem, between Vanchem and Vametco, from just a potential point of view, we have the capacity to become the largest primary producer, yes.
Right, okay. So what are you supplying in terms of the world production?
Currently just under 3%.
Just under 3%, okay. Yeah. And after? Well,
when we've gone through the refurbishment of Vanchem and we got Vametco operating at full capacity, we're targeting just about 10% of the global market.
Okay, so significant. Just explain to me, Bushveld Minerals, Bushveld Vanadium, Bushveld Energy. Are those eventually going to be three different companies, or there's just brands within?
Bushveld Minerals is the listed holding company. Underneath that, we got Bushveld Vanadium, which is essentially houses our mining and processing assets.
Right.
So it's the resource platform.
Right.
Mine it as cheaply as possible. And process it and produce vanadium units. Bushveld Energy says let's take it a step further and take a position in the energy storage market.
Okay. So I just want to, if that gives us a clue or sort of sense of where you want to go, because if you're creating those brands now, will they be separate entities at some point?
I think you want to always retain flexibility around that. So we structure our companies always in a way that allows us that flexibility. Is it foreseeable that Bushveld Energy could be a standalone company in the future? It's possible. It's not something that I said we're definitely going to do. The reason we created it that way, however, is that it is focused on a specific sector, which is the energy market, the energy storage market, to be specific. If, for example, we wanted to attract investors that are particularly interested in the energy market only, we have the ability to do that through Bushveld Energy.
Right.
So we like that flexibility.
But right now, it's the same P&L.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Different team, same team? It's a different skill set, that's for sure.
A different skill set. So if you look at the Bushveld Energy team, it's headed up by Mikhail Nikomarov, who's got extensive experience in the energy markets. And his team includes people who've been involved in energy project development.
Right.
So it is, you're right, a very specific skill set that is required there.
And there's energy. So again, we probably come on to a bit, but just finish off with the recent acquisition, because I want to sort of park the vanadium component, which, because I know you've told that story very well around London and elsewhere.
Yeah.
But recent acquisition, why did you do it? What's your thinking, and what are you trying to fix?
So our strategy that we've spelled out are the best route to developing our projects is through targeting brownfield assets. In fact, if I step back, I mentioned earlier on that there's a guiding philosophy to our projects. It talks about 4 key elements.
Yeah.
You want a commodity that has got sound fundamentals and good outlook from a price point of view. 2, you want a project whose cost proposition will put you in the first or second quartile of the cost curve. 3, you want to have projects that you can reasonably bring into production in a foreseeable future without requiring massive capex.
Yeah.
And then the 4th one is you want scalability.
Or at least cheap or non-dilutive capex, right?
Because if you need billions of dollars, where are you going to raise the money, right?
Yeah.
Especially if you're a junior. And then 4th point is you want scalability. Vanadium ticks all of those boxes for us in South Africa. It's a commodity with good fundamentals, as we talked about earlier on, from a demand side, from a supply side. In South Africa, we're really well located there.
Well, you are, but again, there's perception of the market in terms of country risk. Because there have been problems at various points in South Africa.
I can come to that, but if I may for a second, I think you got a commodity whose supply outlook is concentrated mainly between 3 countries: China, South Africa, and Russia. With South Africa having the largest high-grade primary resources, we always say if you want high-grade vanadium resources, you're going to have to come to South Africa. Because that's where we've got the combination of scale and grade. But also the distribution of vanadium resources globally and the distribution of the production of vanadium, it's such that, in our view, if you look forward to say, where does new supply come from? If you don't have grade that allow you to build a primary plant like we have in South Africa, you have to build a steel plant, which requires billions of dollars, which is why you see most of the production in China and Russia being of that nature, co-production steel plants, which are expensive to build. New supply, in our view, is not going to be dominated by the steel plants or pig iron plants. It's got to come from primary producers. But if you're going to do primary production, you got to find grade. And we say grade is going to come in.
Always, and I think that's true of a lot of commodities. I agree with you. And so, just very quickly, you're selling most of your product to where?
50+% of our production goes to the US.
Goes to the US,
yes,
okay.
But it's predominantly still the steel sector at the moment. So Matthew, we were talking about what this philosophy and how we go to brownfields. So when we focused on vanadium, and with our project in Mokopane, we did a scoping study, we did a pre-feasibility study. What that showed us, we had a project that required $300 million. It was a high-grade vanadium resource, $300 million capex to build mining plant. Gives you a good IRR of 25%, assuming a vanadium price of, call it $33 per kilogram V. Nice project, right?
And what's it been averaging the last 5 years?
Look, I mean, vanadium prices have gone as low as $13.50.
It's
gone as high as $127.
So
I couldn't tell you exactly what the average is, but I'll tell you that
it's about that.
At $33, we're comfortable we have a project that is good, right? But the point I'm highlighting here is that you're a $20 million market cap company or £20 million market company. How are you going to raise $300 million, right? Even though with a project that is solid, it is at that point for us where the epiphany of brownfields hit, which is if I can find existing facilities that I can convert into primary production for vanadium that are cheap and I can do it cheaply, then fantastic. And in South Africa is unique in some respects in terms of vanadium because historically a lot of our industry was built on a vertically integrated basis. You didn't just have mines, they had mines and processing plants. But what happened over like a 30-year period, you saw globally a shift upstream. So your BHPs, your Rios, many of these companies, they decided to focus only on mining. They saw the Pilbara expand capacity. They would just mine and ship it to China, let China process it. It left a number, that kind of migration left a number of facilities, downstream facilities, underutilized, in some instances, not profitable, etc., etc. That is, for us, the opportunity when we talk brownfield. It's can I acquire a facility that is either not being utilized or underutilized and combine it with my resource base and produce vanadium cheaply. The acquisition we did of Vametco was as a result of that strategy. We acquired it initially for $16.5 million in partnership. Right, it's a plant which just last year delivered $107 million in EBITDA. Right, and it's a low-cost producer, and it's a plant which we're now scaling up in terms of its production throughput. The same thing when you think of Vanchem, we thought, okay, what other plants are out there that we can get our hands on? We've got the resource base to supply them. We've got the logistics infrastructure to link our deposits with the plants. So Vanchem was the next one. That's why we did Vanchem. And between the two of them, we create processing capacity that would have cost us many times over to build on a greenfield basis.
Right, okay. So I understand the financial logic there.
Yeah.
But in terms of a strategy for the business, we've touched on briefly in terms of what your plans are in terms of the energy space as well. But how do you describe your strategy? I mean, are you kind of logical, methodical about this, or would you describe yourself as aggressively confident about the way you're doing things?
We maybe it's part of function of my upbringing and my learning. We tend to be very fact driven, very analysis driven.
Where does that come from? So your upbringing.
I studied actuarial science. I worked in a firm like McKinsey & Company, and that's the sort of stuff that we did.
Okay.
And when we decided that vanadium was a market we're going to focus on, we bought Vametco at a time when vanadium prices, at least when we agreed the deal, vanadium prices were about $13.50, right? And yet we thought, even if we have to subsidize this plant for another 2 years, it would still be worth it. What gave us the conviction was a lot of work that we had done around the market structure to come to the conclusion that this is a market in a structural deficit, a deficit that will continue for a while, number two. And number three, a deficit that, quite frankly, to close it, is the opportunity of primary producers who have existing production capacity. And it was hard to convince people, so the deal wasn't easy. When
By
we
people,
did it
you
to
mean
finance
the then owners?
No, to convince financiers.
Financiers, okay. Right.
But in the end, we got it done, and I think we've been proven right in respect of that. Another part of our strategy, so the brownfield strategy is a very clear strategy that says target brownfield assets and make sure that you invest in them, you refurbish them as necessary, and you maximize your throughput through them. Second part of it is we realized 90% of the vanadium demand is coming from the steel sector. What other sources of demand are there?
Why don't you tell people about VRFB, which is vanadium redox flow batteries.
Yes.
So start with that.
So
what's the difference between them and lithium ion? Maybe start with that, because I think that's what people understand.
Okay. Both of them are batteries, which means that they store energy. Okay, and you charge them, and then you discharge them when you need the energy. Vanadium redox flow batteries essentially store that energy in vanadium electrolyte. Vanadium is one of those.
So it's a kind of liquid.
It's liquid.
Yeah.
vanadium can exist in 4 different oxidation states and quite stable. So the concept of vanadium redox flow battery really is a reversible oxidation and reduction reaction between vanadium in different oxidation states. So from 2 plus to 3 plus, from 4 plus to 5 plus. So the charging and the discharging is the movement of ions between the different oxidation states. What's good about it is that it's one element you're using, so you don't have the risks of cross-contamination. Secondly, what's good is the fact that the way you store the electricity in these tanks, you can scale them up in terms of the amount of energy you store by just increasing the size of the tanks without duplicating the entire system. So they're flexible, they're scalable, they're intrinsically safe.
So less risk of fire or overheating.
You don't. I've never heard of any vanadium battery catching fire. They can operate at fairly robust ranges of temperature, and their long lifespan.
So less degradation.
No degradation.
No degradation. Okay.
And you can run this for 20 years plus.
So uses for something like this, you were talking about they're much longer life.
Yes.
Larger.
Yes.
Safer
and scalable.
So different applications to potentially lithium ion.
Lithium
at the moment,
advantages are typically is high energy density, and lithium is cornered mainly the mobility space, right? You're not going to put a vanadium battery in a car, right? So mobility, your cell phones, your laptops, right? That's typically its space. In the stationary, when we talk stationary storage, lithium still plays in that space, but it's typically are in the short duration space, like frequency regulation, for example. Once you're going long duration and long lifespan, that's a space we believe favors vanadium redox flow batteries.
So how much of a vanadium redox flow battery would be vanadium? What's the potential size of this market? Have you done any work?
Yeah, we've done a lot of work on that. In fact, on our website, we've got a webinar, Energy Storage 101, which does a deep dive into
what's the URL?
www.bushveldminerals.com or bushveldenergy.com. Both websites will give you access to
Worth a view. Okay.
It's worthwhile because it's quite a deep dive into this, into the applications, of stationary energy storage. So maybe just to explain very high level. You use, if you've got a utility and your load, your load in a country for energy is not flat, right? You've got peak periods and you've got off-peak periods and you've got another peak periods. In South Africa, for example, typically morning and evening peaks, afternoon off-peak. So how do you design your generation to meet that? Typically, you got what is called base load, and which is not designed to be at the peak level. And then you supplement during the peaking periods with peaking capacity, right? And these are typically, either gas plants or diesel generator plants, etc. What energy storage allows you to do is it can help you to flatten. In off-peak periods, you can store the excess energy, and you can supplement your requirements during peak periods, right? Equally, as you introduce more renewable energy to the grid, you need to smooth that entrance of that into the grid. Energy storage can help you with that. Thirdly, in some markets like South Africa, you're generating your peak generation capacity for solar is during the day, off-peak. If you're able to store that power, you can make it available in a more flexible way during peak periods. And there are a few other things like, your transmission capex deferral. When you've got, transmission infrastructure, think of it like a highway. Right? If you get a freeway that gets clogged in the morning and gets clogged in the evening, and you've got 4 lanes, you don't build a half a lane. You're going to build 2 lanes, right? Or 3 lanes, extra lanes. But if that same 4-lane freeway during the afternoon is virtually empty, building an extra 2 lanes, is not quite efficient. So what if you could distribute that traffic more regularly during the day, The result of that is that you don't have to build that extra lane, so your capex for transmission expansion, you can push it out more. So the world over, utilities are recognizing the value of stationary energy storage. It's so big a market, it's expected by 2027 to be in the order of $50+ billion.
What, globally?
Yeah.
Globally, okay, right. So
you're talking about something like 100,000 megawatt hours of new energy storage deployments per year.
Right.
Now, there will be different technologies that take a share of that market.
Yeah.
We estimate that if vanadium flow batteries capture only 10% of that market, you will need about 55,000 tons of vanadium to support that. That's more than 50% of last year's total production. So,
but there's ifs and buts in there, okay? If it gets that. So that VRFB style of battery is not there yet. Is there? Well, you tell me. Is there much of a take up?
What do you mean is
I mean, lithium ion. Everyone's gearing up lithium ion, and there's a few other options. You know, that people are focused around that. But where is this designed today?
So what if I tell you that today the biggest battery installed with more than 4+ hours storage capacity in the world is a vanadium flow battery built by Sumitomo, 60 megawatt hours, 15 megawatts for 4 hours in Japan. The biggest battery being constructed in the world today is 800 megawatt hours, 200 megawatts for 4 hours storage.
Right.
It's vanadium Redox flow battery being constructed in China. Right. It's not a technology that's in a lab. It's a technology that is in commercial deployment.
But are these one-off batteries to sort of see what sort of scale they can get to, because they are going to rock. You mentioned like some pretty Sumitomo, big name, a lot of money. So are they planning to roll this out? Are they going to be manufacturers, or is this just, like you say?
There are several companies that are manufacturing vanadium flow batteries today, and the point I'm making is that they are in commercial deployment today. They need to scale up, of course.
Right.
But what's going to drive the scale up is more uptake of the VRFB systems. Right now, we are seeing signs of that growing momentum. So I'll give you an example. Please. In South Africa, our utility has announced that they're going to be procuring 1,400 megawatt hours of battery energy storage.
Right.
Funded already, right?
Have they decided on the technology that?
No, it's batteries. Multiple batteries will bid in that space.
Right. Okay.
But it's long duration type. We believe that vanadium batteries have a very strong proposition there, not to mention a strong local content proposition there. The World Bank has announced a program for 17,500 battery energy storage by 2025 in low and middle income countries. And they've committed $1 billion. They'll mobilize another $4 billion towards this. It's a terrain which will be occupied by multiple technologies. So I'm not saying that this is going to be solely vanadium's terrain. But the numbers I told you, I said if VRFBs were to capture even 10% of that market, this is what it means. The point about it is that it's such a big deal for vanadium that the entire vanadium industry, in my view, should be doing everything they can to support the VRFB opportunity. The technology is there, the scale up is what is required, and what we did in setting up Bushveld Energy is precisely to drive that going forward.
Well, I guess you've adapted your strategy since 2012 to understand what's coming down the line, but what you're saying is you think there's a big bet to be made on that battery
We think
technology.
there's a big low risk bet. Let me tell you why low risk.
Please.
Because our demand is anchored in steel making.
Yes.
If batteries never existed, we still have a fantastic story anchored in supplying to the steel market with a low production cost basis.
For sure.
Right? 2, it's low risk because the capital expenditure required to play in that space is much, much smaller relative to the capital expenditure incurred in building mines and processing infrastructure. I'll give you an example of that. To build a processing, a chemicals, electrolyte manufacturing plant capable of delivering 200 megawatt hours worth of electrolyte a year, that will cost us $10 million. right? That equity included $10 million to build, and that will use about 1,100 metric tons of vanadium, okay? To build a mine and a plant that supplies 1,100 tons of vanadium, if I just do a ratio, simple ratio,
Okay.
you're talking about $100 million. So the capital intensity down there is very, very low.
Yeah.
And if you take that into account, for us as a company, it's a no-brainer to say, let's do everything we can to support this emerging industry, which is not only attractive for its demand strengthening proposition. Commercially, we think it's potentially 10 times as big as the commodity market.
Okay, so tell me, because we've got to bring this back to your company, right? So we're talking about the market here. So where's Bushveld going to sit in this? What precisely do you've got the vanadium, you've got energy division, we'll call it.
Yeah.
What are you going to be actually doing?
So there are two things. The first one is Bushveld Vanadium, which is developing a large resource base, developing processing capacity. We have two processing plants, produce vanadium, low cost, high quality, right? Okay. With good margins and cash generation capacity.
For sure, I bought that. Big tick.
Second part of it is Bushveld Energy, which is there to promote the vanadium redox flow battery opportunity for Bushveld Minerals. There are three things we do there. One is we manufacture electrolyte for the industry. Two is we engage in market development. It's project development. What I mean by that is a team of people that understand the energy industry. These are regulated markets. These are structured markets. You need to know where the structural levers are to unlock them at large scale. So it's individuals who know the energy markets. We secure mandates for large-scale energy storage deployments. That's the second thing we do. So, for example, we'll be bidding into the ESCOM program, right? Into the World Bank program. The third component of the business is partnering with vanadium flow battery companies.
That's what I want to get to.
And we don't need to reinvent the wheel there.
No.
We partner with existing
players. So break that down for me, because this is interesting, because this is about the future of your company, and the future value of your company is inextricably linked to this if you think the market's going the way it is. So I get the bidding bit. That's a real skill. It's tough. It's hard. But in terms of these JV, these partnerships, linking with existing battery technologies and manufacturers, what would that look like for you in real terms?
Suffice to say, there are several of these companies that have a good product, that have good management teams, that need to solve two things. Security of supply of vanadium. Two, need to solve for the price volatility of vanadium historically. Two things which we can
Does it work on would it work on a contract basis in terms of forward purchase? No, it would be always spot.
No, we've got a solution for that, which I'll talk to. And then they need to scale up, right? So for us, it's a case of saying, let's partner with these guys, and partnership takes many different forms, and whether it means equity partnerships, whether it means JVs, or whether it means just a simple relationship of supply of electrolyte into their systems.
Well, you need certainty too. What they want is very important, but what you need is important too.
But we can do a lot about that. That's why we've got a project development arm. That's why we go secure the mandates, right? So I can come to somebody and say, I've got a pipeline. Let me give you an example. We're doing a mini grid at our mine. 4 megawatt hour battery with 2.5 megawatts of solar. So for me to go to a battery company and say, I have the opportunity to build batteries to supply you into. I will supply the vanadium into that. Can you give me a solution? And can we put together a solution which is bankable, which provides a solid business case to our mine? And in the case of the mini grid, the answer is absolutely. And we've had a number of responses from companies, and we're in negotiations at the moment. And we are going to appoint somebody, and the news of that we'll publish.
That'd be interesting. Well, I think there'll be a few other miners knocking on your door at that point.
At least it will provide a good model that others can that combination of solar plus storage can be a viable source to their energy requirements. I had mentioned that we'll help them solve for the cost piece and the supply piece. Maybe the question is, how do we do that? On the supply side, that's why we're scaling up our production capacity. I mean, we're talking about more than trebling our production from 2,560 last year to about 10,000 metric tons.
Saw that, yeah.
On the cost side, what we try to do is to say, let's take out the price risk of vanadium from the capex decision that needs to be made about a vanadium flow battery. And because the vanadium, as we talked earlier on, doesn't degrade over life, and that at the end of the life I can take it out of a battery without destroying the battery, and I can use it in another battery, or I can convert it into ferrovanadium and sell it into the steel market. It's got residual value, and that allows us to actually rent the vanadium into battery systems, and they're of such a scale that a single contract can allow me to deliver enough vanadium, and it's secure, and while it's sitting in that battery, it's earning yield, and it's still sitting on your balance sheet.
That's fascinating.
So we think that by combining innovations like this, we're able to solve for the two main hurdles that vanadium flow batteries may have faced in the past, and we think that's gonna support their deployments globally.
Well, look, Fortune, and you spent some time explaining your strategy today to us. I think what I'd also like you to finish off with is, could you just tell the audience, our subscribers, maybe 5 reasons why they should be thinking about your company as an investment proposition?
5. I got 7.
Give us 7.
Let me get them to you quickly. The first one is that we have a commodity vanadium with excellent fundamentals. As I said earlier on, it's in a structural deficit. Its outlook is really solid. 2, we have high quality, high grade primary vanadium resources, the largest primary vanadium resource base of anybody. And 3, we have brownfield processing capacity, which we've put together, which we're going to be scaling up, which allow us to hit the kind of production volumes that we're targeting very quickly and much cheaper than it would cost us on a greenfield basis. The fourth point I would mention is that, through the way we've gone about it, we have also acquired and inherited management teams with depth of expertise in vanadium. South Africa has been doing vanadium for decades, so we understand vanadium from a technical point of view. The fifth point I'll highlight is that with the integration we have into energy storage, we have an operation that has got a natural hedge. If vanadium prices come down, energy storage solutions that use vanadium become a lot more compelling, right? And also that gives us access into what we see as a multi-billion-dollar market opportunity for the company. Then finally, second but not least, is that we are operating in a South African jurisdiction, the Bushveld complex, which is host to the largest high-grade primary vanadium resource base in the world. And with the story that we've put together today, with the growth that we have, our proposition then to shareholders is, even just on a production growth basis alone, we've got substantial capital growth ahead. When you look at the downstream integration into the energy storage, that's significant capital growth proposition. On top of all of that, we believe that being a low-cost producer will be generating sufficient cash to look after our growth, and also at some point to start paying a dividend to shareholders. So in a nutshell, that's the
magical phrase. That we like that.
Yeah.
You got it because you're sitting on a little bit of cash at the moment. I think you're looking at building that up. You've got, you seem to know where you're going with the company. It's been fascinating listening to you today. Thank you very much for coming in.
Thanks for your time.
Seeing you soon. Thank you very much for watching our video. We do aim to give you informed and intelligent information with which to make your investment decisions. So if you liked what you just saw, please give us a thumbs up. And if you want to see more insightful, in-depth, honest and unbiased interviews, then please click the subscribe button. So thanks again for watching, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.